Imagine a world consumed by conflict, where every corner of the globe is touched by the flames of war. This was the reality during a time known as World War I, a cataclysmic event that began in 1914. The spark that ignited the war was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary in June 1914. This event set off a chain reaction of alliances and treaties, drawing multiple nations into the conflict. Millions of soldiers fought and died in muddy trenches, enduring unimaginable hardships. The trenches became a symbol of the war's brutality, where men lived, fought, and often perished in squalid conditions. New technologies brought unimaginable destruction. Tanks rumbled across the battlefield and airplanes soared above, dropping bombs and engaging in dogfights. These innovations changed the nature of warfare forever. The world watched in horror as the fighting raged on. Civilians far from the front lines were not spared from the war's reach. They anxiously followed news reports, hoping for the safety of their loved ones. This war was a defining moment in human history. It was marked by significant battles and events that would be remembered for generations. Each battle brought new levels of devastation and heroism. It shattered empires and redrew the map of Europe. The Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, German, and Russian empires all crumbled under the weight of the conflict, leading to a new political landscape. It left a legacy of loss and destruction that would shape the 20th century. Cities lay in ruins, and entire generations were scarred by the horrors they had witnessed. It is a story of courage and sacrifice, but also of the terrible costs of conflict. Soldiers showed incredible bravery, helping each other in the face of danger, while medics worked tirelessly to save lives. In the aftermath of the war, the world vowed to prevent such bloodshed from ever happening again. Peace treaties were signed and efforts were made to rebuild and heal the wounds of war. But the seeds of future conflict had already been sown. Political tensions and unresolved issues from the war would eventually lead to even greater turmoil in the years to come. The Great War serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the importance of understanding the causes of conflict. It teaches us that the pursuit of peace requires constant vigilance and a deep commitment to resolving differences through dialogue and cooperation. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife Sophie on June 28, 1914, was the spark that ignited World War I. The assassination took place in Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia, which was under Austro-Hungarian rule. The assassin Gavrilo Princip was a Serbian nationalist who believed that Bosnia should be part of Serbia. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for the assassination and issued an ultimatum with a list of demands. Serbia agreed to most of the demands but refused some, leading Austria-Hungary to declare war on Serbia on July 28, 1914. This declaration of war set off a chain reaction across Europe, as countries were bound by a complex web of alliances. Within a matter of days, Germany, Russia, France and Great Britain were all drawn into the conflict. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was the trigger, but the underlying causes of the war were far more complex. One of the main causes of World War I was the complex system of alliances that existed between European countries in the early 20th century. These alliances were intricate and often secretive, creating a web of mutual defense agreements that bound countries together in ways that were not always clear to the public or even to the leaders themselves. These alliances were meant to deter aggression and maintain peace, but they ultimately had the opposite effect. Instead of preventing conflict, they created a situation where a small dispute could trigger a chain reaction, pulling multiple countries into war. They created a situation where a conflict between two countries could quickly escalate into a wider war. The interconnected nature of these alliances meant that once one country was drawn into conflict, its allies were almost automatically involved as well. The two main alliances were the Triple Entente, consisting of France, Russia, and Great Britain. This alliance was formed as a counterbalance to the growing power of Germany and its allies, and the Triple Alliance, consisting of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. This alliance was designed to protect the member countries from potential threats posed by the Triple Entente. Each country in an alliance pledged to come to the aid of its allies in the event of an attack. This meant that a conflict involving one country could quickly draw in its allies, leading to a much larger and more devastating war. When Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, Russia, bound by its alliance with Serbia, mobilized its army in support of Serbia. This mobilization was seen as a direct threat by Austria-Hungary and its ally Germany. Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, saw this as a threat and declared war on Russia. The German leadership believed that a swift victory over Russia would prevent a prolonged conflict. France, allied with Russia, then declared war on Germany. The French government felt compelled to support its ally and counter the German threat, and Great Britain, obligated to defend Belgium's neutrality after Germany invaded Belgium on its way to France, declared war on Germany. The invasion of Belgium was the final trigger that brought Britain into the conflict, turning a regional war into a world war. Section 4. Empires hungry for more. Another major cause of World War I was imperialism, the policy of extending a country's power and influence through diplomacy or military force. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, European powers competed fiercely for colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. This competition for colonies created tension and rivalry between the European powers. They clashed over resources, territory, and influence. The desire for colonies fueled an arms race as each country sought to build up its military to protect its interests. The scramble for colonies also contributed to a sense of nationalism and rivalry between the European powers. Each country believed in its own superiority and destiny. This sense of nationalism made it easier for countries to justify going to war. Section 5. The Glorification of War. Militarism, the belief or desire of a government or people that a country should maintain a strong military capability and be prepared to use it aggressively to defend or promote national interests, also played a significant role in the outbreak of World War I. In the years leading up to the war, European countries engaged in a massive military build-up, expanding their armies and navies at an alarming rate. This arms race created an atmosphere of fear and suspicion as each country saw its neighbors' growing military strength as a threat. Military leaders became increasingly influential in government, and the possibility of war was openly discussed. The glorification of war in popular culture also contributed to a climate in which war was seen as a glorious adventure, a test of manhood, and a way to achieve national glory. Young men were eager to enlist and fight for their country. Section 6. A continent divided. Nationalism, a strong feeling of pride in and devotion to one's country, was a powerful force in Europe in the early 20th century. This fervent sense of national identity was not just a passive sentiment, it was an active and dynamic force that shaped the political landscape of the continent. People were not only proud of their nations, but were also willing to go to great lengths to defend and promote their national interests. It was a complex and often contradictory force, promoting both unity and division. On one hand, it brought people together, fostering a sense of belonging and shared purpose. On the other hand, it sowed seeds of discord as different national groups vied for dominance and recognition. On the one hand, nationalism could unite people with a shared language, culture, and history. This unity was often celebrated through cultural festivals, national holidays, and other public displays of national pride. People felt a deep connection to their heritage and were motivated to preserve and promote their cultural traditions. On the other hand, it could also be used to justify aggression and conflict, as people were encouraged to see themselves as superior to other nations. This sense of superiority often led to xenophobia and hostility towards those who were perceived as outsiders or threats to the national identity. This was particularly true in the Balkans, a region of southeastern Europe with a long history of ethnic and religious conflict. The Balkans were a melting pot of different cultures, languages, and religions, and this diversity often led to tensions and rivalries. The Ottoman Empire, which had ruled much of the Balkans for centuries, was in decline. This decline created a power vacuum that various ethnic groups sought to fill, each hoping to establish their own independent states. As the Ottoman Empire weakened, different ethnic groups in the Balkans, such as the Serbs, Croats, Bosnians, and Bulgarians, sought independence and self-rule. These groups were driven by a desire for self-determination and a belief that they had the right to govern themselves without foreign interference. This struggle for independence led to a series of wars and crises in the Balkans in the years leading up to World War I. These conflicts were marked by intense violence and widespread suffering, as different groups fought for control and dominance. These conflicts created a volatile situation in which a small spark could ignite a wider war. The tensions in the Balkans were like a powder keg, ready to explode at any moment, and it was only a matter of time before a single event would set off a chain reaction that would engulf the entire continent in conflict.